For some, it is a mark of maturity. For others, it's a sign of their mortality. But for most, it's the halfway point on the journey of life and when it really begins.
Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans.
Let's take a look at what life at 40 meant to a few individuals.
Do you approach it with any fear?
40s? No. Maturity, I look at it as maturity. I'm going for the mature angle.
Which is?
Grey hair.
You've got some,
sagging
actually.
everything.
You've got some grey hair.
I know, Sue. Did you have to tell them?
In his 40th year, Ernest Hemingway wrote, "For Whom the Bell Tolls." Despite making the Maltese Falcon a few years before, John Huston would have to wait out the war before returning to Hollywood to make masterpieces like The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Key Largo, The African Queen, and Moby Dick. In 1947, Olivier was knighted by King George. He directed and starred in Hamlet, for which he won Best Picture and Actor Oscars. Blacklisted in Hollywood, and still a couple years away from making Touch of Evil, Orson Welles made a variety of projects for British television. Frank Sinatra perfected and released his concept album, Wee Small Hours. Kirk Douglas's portrayal of Van Gogh in Lust for Life would hit the box office in his 40th year. He also went into production on Gunfight at the OK Corral. Still to come for Douglas was Paths of Glory and Spartacus. Years before stardom found him, Charles Bronson celebrated his 40s with an Emmy nomination for his supporting role in a General Electric Theatre TV episode, Memory in White. He then brought character to his role in The Great Escape. Still to come, The Dirty Dozen, Death Wish, Hard Times, and Death Hunt. In his 40th year, Charlton Heston took on the role of John the Baptist in The Greatest Story Ever Told. He also created the role of Michelangelo in The Agony and the Ecstasy. Still ahead for Chuck, after a wave of biblical and historical roles, was a slew of science fiction and disaster films including Planet of the Apes, Soylent Green, and Earthquake. Well on his way into his wilderness years, Marlon Brando's 40th birthday would see the release of Bedtime Story of David Niven. Hollywood's Brando blacklist shut him out of many big-time roles. His growing activism, financial and moral support of the Black Panthers and Native American rights groups, and other progressive causes helped to form his reputation as a difficult actor. Yet despite his growing discontent, some of his most defining roles were still to come, with The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, and Superman yet to be realized. Sammy Davis Jr. was at full tilt at age 40, starring in Golden Boy on Broadway, for which he received a Best Actor nomination. He was hosting an afternoon talk show in New York, recording albums, appearing in television variety shows, and performing at concerts all over the country. In his 40th year, Sidney Poitier would hit 3 home runs with Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, In the Heat of the Night, and To Stir with Love, which made him the box office star of the year. Stanley Kubrick would release the pinnacle movie of his career. He then devoted his 40th year to developing an unfilmed Napoleon project for the big screen. The Big 4-0 saw the release of Kelly's Heroes and 2 Mules for Sister Sarah for The Man with No Name. While on the production of The Beguiled, Eastwood would direct his first film, a documentary short about its making. It was a turning point in his career as he would grab the director reins for his first film, Play Misty for Me. Reforging his tough guy image, his next picture would be Dirty Harry. Leonard Nimoy continued his recording career, releasing Space Odyssey, he was a cast member on Mission Impossible, and starred opposite Yul Brynner in Louis L'Amour's Catlow. This gave him the chance to break away from his role as Spock. He later recalled that the film was one of the happiest of his life. Only 4 days younger than Nimoy, William Shatner suffered a long dry spell after Star Trek ended, and filled the time making various television and game show appearances. Elizabeth Taylor would release 3 films in her 40th year. She then made Divorce His, Divorce Hers, a 2-part made-for-TV movie with her 5th husband, Richard Burton, who she married and divorced twice. Johnny Cash had just completed a 2-year run of his show for ABC as he turned 40. His image as the Man in Black was now crystallized, releasing the song of the same title just a year before. He released the song Give My Love to Rose, and performed for President Nixon, and met with him to advocate prison reform. Despite his recent Grammy win for his thunderous recording of How Great Thou Art, Elvis was nonetheless well on his way to becoming increasingly isolated and overweight, with prescription drugs affecting his health, mood, and his stage act. Yet Presley continued to play for sellout crowds. At age 40, his final concert in 1975 was attended by 62,000 fans. Also in his 40th year, he purchased a commercial jet and named it the Lisa Marie. At age 40, Woody Allen was still a couple years away from defining himself with Annie Hall and Manhattan.
Warren Beatty would make his hit Heaven Can Wait in his 40th year, which earned him Oscar nominations for Best Picture, Director, and Actor. This gave him the clout to make Reds. After his success with The Godfather, The Conversation, and Godfather Part 2, Francis Ford Coppola released his most difficult and heralded masterpiece, Apocalypse Now. Age 40 would mark John Lennon's return to music. Just prior to his untimely death, he would release Double Fantasy, and his final days were spent recording his last album, Milk and Honey. Still a few years away from his role as Lone Wolf McQuade, which would inspire the TV series Walker, Texas Ranger, and his blockbuster Missing in Action, Chuck Norris would star in The Octagon. Tug of War marked Paul McCartney's 40th year and his collaboration with Stevie Wonder on Ebony and Ivory. Only a year after his marriage with Bridget Nelson and the release of his second Rambo movie, Cobra would mark Stallone's 40th year.
I don't deal with psychos. I put them away.
And he would then go into production on Over the Top. At age 40, Stevie Nicks of Fleetwood Mac began work on her fourth solo album. The Other Side of the Mirror achieved platinum status and is loosely themed around Alice's adventures in Wonderland. After leaving Cineplex, Garth Drabinsky began his journey to Broadway with Livent and a successful run of Phantom of the Opera. Tom Cruise starred in Minority Report and then went on to make The Last Samurai. At age 40, he was rated by Premiere Magazine as one of the 20 most powerful people in Hollywood. So as you can see, much can be accomplished and there's still much to do at 40 and beyond.